The sun hadn't yet risen when I pulled my car into the familiar gravel driveway. A quiet hum of birds stirred in the stillness of the morning, and the light from the porch lantern glowed soft against the gray-blue sky. The trip I had waited for, saved for, dreamed about for 3 years, this morning was supposed to be the start of it. I glanced at the clock. 6:02 a.m. 2 minutes late. I took a deep breath, rehearsing the excitement I wanted to feel. The joy I expected. The gratitude I hoped to see reflected in their faces. A week-long tour across the Baltic, Riga, Tallinn, Helsinki. History, luxury, and family. But when the front door opened, something was already off. "Morning, honey." My mom called brightly, dragging a large navy suitcase behind her. Her tone was chipper, too chipper. I opened the car door, forcing a smile as I stepped out. "Sorry I'm a couple minutes late." Road was clear. She waved it off. "No big deal." Then the front door opened again. Out stepped my younger sister, Celia. In leggings, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, and her own suitcase rolling behind her like she was about to board a Fashion Week flight. I froze. "What's going on?" I asked slowly, my voice measured but tight. My mother turned with an exaggerated smile. "Oh, sweetheart. We didn't want to spring this on you too soon, but we thought Celia could use this trip more than you right now." I blinked. "What?" "She's been going through so much," she continued as if reading from a rehearsed line. "That job loss really took a toll. You're always so busy with work, always jetting off on business. You can travel whenever. Celia really needs this break." Celia, never one to feel guilt over anything, leaned on her suitcase handle like it was a podium. "You're seriously going to make a big deal out of this?" she said with a sarcastic chuckle. "Come on, Liv. You'll be fine. You travel all the time. I never get to do this. My name is Olivia Reyes, and I am 32 years old. For the past 3 years, I've juggled 2 jobs, cut out vacations, lived below my means, and skipped every Black Friday deal just to plan one perfect gift for my parents, a luxury cruise across Northern Europe. And now I was being told that the seat next to them on that ship, the one I had envisioned myself in, was being handed to my sister, who hadn't held a job longer than 6 months in her entire adult life. I looked at my father as he stepped out next, dressed in his usual cargo jacket, wheeling a small travel case behind him. He offered me a tight, almost apologetic smile. "Thanks for coming to drive us. Traffic's always worse to the airport this time of day." I stared at him. "You're really going through with this?" He shifted his gaze to the ground. "Your mother thought it would be best. Celia's been having a rough patch. We didn't want to upset you before the trip." I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat was too tight, my chest full of sharp, heavy silence. So I did what I always did. I swallowed it. "Fine," I said quietly. "Let's load up." The drive to the airport was 29 miles of choking on silence, except for Celia's nonstop commentary from the back seat. "Oh my God, Mom, did you see that reel about the Helsinki ferry markets? I have to go there. Do you think I'll have time for some shopping? I brought 3 swimsuits for the spa days." 3. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly I could feel the leather imprinting on my palms. My mom giggled in response. "We'll make time, sweetie. I'll skip the history museum if I need to. Liv's itinerary is so packed, I swear she doesn't know how to relax." That stung more than it should have. I focused on the road, blinking hard. At one point, my dad cleared his throat. "Thanks for driving us, Liv. We know this isn't exactly ideal." "Ideal?" I repeated, a tight smile forming against my will. "Interesting choice of words, Dad." Celia leaned forward. "You're not mad, are you? Like, be honest. You always tell me to take better care of my mental health, right? Well, this is that." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from screaming. When we arrived at the departure drop-off, I climbed out and opened the trunk. My muscles moved on autopilot as I lifted bags I didn't want to touch, for a trip I wasn't invited to. My mom reached out and gave me a quick hug. "Thanks for being so understanding. You're such a strong girl, always thinking of others." Celia slung her purse over her shoulder and grinned. "Love you, sis. You're seriously the best." I didn't say a word. I just nodded, walked back to the driver's seat, and sat still as I watched them walk into the terminal, laughing, chatting, their luggage rolling smoothly behind them. I was still sitting there 10 minutes later when the tears came. Quiet, sharp, and hot. I didn't sob. I didn't scream. Just silent drops sliding down my cheeks. Then, something inside me shifted. It wasn't rage. Not quite. It was clarity. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and began logging into every travel account I had used for the trip. One by one, I went through every reservation I had made: hotels, tours, transportation, upgrades. Cancel. Refund. Void. Some bookings only offered partial returns. Others, non-refundable. I didn't care. I'd rather burn the money than let them enjoy it without me. By the time I got home and shut my laptop, a strange calm had settled over me. Let them figure out the rest. Let them see what it feels like when the one who holds everything together decides to let go. The calls began just after noon the next day. At first, Olivia ignored them. She was curled up on her couch in a faded hoodie, sipping lukewarm coffee and flipping through the pages of a novel she'd meant to read for months. Her suitcase, once packed with excitement and care, sat open on the bedroom floor, its contents slowly being folded back into drawers like funeral arrangements for a vacation that had died before it even began. Her phone buzzed again. Mom, 3 missed calls. Celia, 2 missed calls, 1 voicemail. Dad, 1 message, call us when you can. A part of her, a very old, well-trained part, itched to answer. To smooth things over. To play the reasonable daughter. But she didn't. She gave herself until sundown. When the final beams of light stretched long and golden across her hardwood floor, Olivia finally unlocked her phone and tapped on her mother's latest voicemail. Olivia. We just arrived in Riga, and the hotel says the reservation is gone. They're fully booked now, and we've had to wait in the lobby for nearly an hour. Please call the manager and fix this. It's under your name, right? I know this must be a mix-up. A second voicemail followed, only minutes later. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. None of the tours are booked either. The travel concierge keeps asking for confirmation codes and we don't have them. I don't understand, why isn't anything showing up under our name? Olivia, please answer your phone. Then came Celia's voice, sharp and brittle. Wow. So petty. You think this is funny? We're stranded here, Liv. You need to fix this now. I don't care how mad you are, grow up and be an adult. Olivia let the messages play out without flinching. They weren't stranded, of course. They were in one of the most tourist-friendly capitals in Europe, with international ATMs, dozens of hotels, and no language barrier. But they were confused, unprepared, and, most of all, uncomfortable. For the first time in years, Olivia wasn't going to fix it. She had spent the last decade running interference. Booking flights, handling reservations, catching the mistakes her family made, covering for Celia's forgotten rent or her parents' last-minute decisions. Now they could learn what life looked like without her safety net. She picked up her phone, thumb hovering over the call button. Then she changed her mind and texted back instead. I canceled the reservations. Since I wasn't going on the trip, I didn't see the point in funding it. Then she turned off her phone again. The next day, she woke to more than a dozen unread messages. Her mother's tone had shifted, no longer confused, but furious. This was cruel, Olivia. Your sister is in tears. We're spending 3 times what we planned because of your stunt. Celia's texts were more venomous. Hope you're happy. You ruined the only good thing I had going this year. Don't expect me to ever forgive you for this. Her father, as always, played the middleman. Olivia. This doesn't feel like you. Please call. We need to talk. But Olivia didn't respond. Instead, she took a long, hot shower. She made breakfast. She even spent the afternoon reorganizing the little balcony garden Jason had once helped her build, the man she'd loved and lost 4 years ago. Jason had always told her, you give so much to people who never refill your cup. Now, she finally understood what he meant. By the 3rd day, the messages changed again. This time, her mother sounded weary, like a guest in someone else's drama. We've found a small hotel. It's fine. Celia's still upset. Your dad won't stop pacing. I don't know what you hope to prove with this, but I hope it was worth it. Olivia closed the voicemail with a small smile. No, it wasn't about proving a point. It was about liberation. Later that week, Olivia visited Grace, her closest friend since college. Grace opened the door with 2 coffees in hand and that look in her eye, the one that said she'd already heard everything. They called me, she said as Olivia stepped inside. Your mom, specifically. She sounded like someone trying to report a crime to a bakery. Olivia burst out laughing. What did she say? Grace raised her eyebrows. Something about you being vindictive and ungrateful. Oh, and my favorite, emotionally fragile. I told her you were busy rediscovering your peace and that I'd pass on the message when you were ready. I should have known she'd try to go through you. She thinks I'm still on her side. Olivia sank into the couch and took a long sip of her coffee. It's weird. I thought I'd feel guilty. Or maybe scared. But all I feel is clarity. Because for the first time, Grace said, settling beside her, you set a boundary. And you actually stuck to it. A few days later, the inevitable confrontation arrived. Her parents' taxi pulled up in front of Olivia's house late in the afternoon. She was already sitting on the porch, mug of tea in hand, when they stepped out, sunburned, disheveled, and visibly bitter. Celia wore oversized sunglasses and looked like someone who had aged 10 years in a week. Her mother was the first to speak. Well, I hope you're happy. I'm content, Olivia replied, her tone steady. You stranded your family, her mother snapped. We spent the whole trip trying to recover your mess. Dingy rooms. Cancelled bookings. Tours we couldn't even find on our own. Celia crossed her arms. It was humiliating. People laughed at us. I'm sure they didn't, Olivia said coolly. But even if they did, that was your choice. You removed me from the trip. You didn't just uninvite me, you replaced me. And you expected me to pay for it. Her father tried to step in, his voice lower. It wasn't fair, I'll admit that. But canceling everything. That was extreme. What's extreme, Olivia said, rising from her seat, is planning something for years, only to be told, without warning, that I wasn't welcome. You called it a gift, and then decided you could re-gift it to someone else. Celia scoffed. You're being dramatic. And you've been entitled for 30 years, Olivia shot back. The silence was sharp and sudden. You've always assumed someone would take care of things. Usually me. But I'm not your fixer anymore. Her mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Olivia picked up her bag and stepped past them. Don't worry. I didn't cancel your flight home. But next time you want a vacation? You can plan it yourselves. She walked to her car, the last rays of daylight casting long shadows on the pavement. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She didn't turn back. Because she knew something now she hadn't known before. She didn't need to earn respect from people who never learned how to give it. Olivia hadn't cried. Not when she canceled the reservations. Not when her mother berated her in voicemails. Not even when she stood on the porch watching her family shuffle back from the taxi with sunburnt faces and sour expressions, pretending like they hadn't spent the last week humiliating themselves across Europe. But she did cry, 3 nights later, when she opened her laptop, scrolled through the photo album she'd designed for the trip, and quietly pressed delete. It had been filled with maps of castles in Estonia, gelato stops in Italy, walking tours of Helsinki's harbors. She had built it with love. Every caption, every hand-picked spot, was meant to be a shared experience with her parents. Now it was a ghost. She leaned back in her chair, exhaled long and slow, and stared at the blank screen in front of her. The hurt wasn't sharp anymore. It was dull and constant, like the ache of an old wound that still knew the shape of betrayal. She didn't want to dwell on it. She wanted something new. So she opened a fresh browser tab, typed solo travel destinations for women, and hit enter. A few articles popped up. Paris, too cliché. Bali, too influencer. But then she saw it, Florence, the art lover's sanctuary. Her heart stirred. Florence had always been her dream city. Not her parents'. Not Celia's. Hers. Within an hour, she had her dates, her ticket, and a solo traveler's B&B in the heart of the city booked under her own name, with no one else's suitcase to consider. She was going to Italy. Alone. For herself. The weeks leading up to the trip were the most peaceful Olivia could remember in years. She turned her phone on only when she felt like it. Her parents had tried calling again, this time with carefully crafted messages. Hope you're well. We'd like to talk. We regret how things unfolded. Can we make amends? She didn't respond. Not yet. Not because she wanted to punish them, but because she was still learning how to breathe without them in her lungs. Celia, of course, sent no apologies. Only a sarcastic "glad you're finally happy being alone" buried in a status update. Olivia didn't comment. She didn't care. She was no longer accepting invitations to guilt. Instead, she focused on herself. She bought a new suitcase, a soft emerald green with wheels that glided like butter. She packed clothes she loved, sundresses, a pair of boots perfect for cobblestones, and a crimson scarf Jason once gave her, back when she'd believed the world would always be generous. The night before she left, she sat on the edge of her bed with her journal open. She wrote 3 words on the first blank page. I choose me. Florence welcomed her like an old friend. The streets were warm with life, Vespas humming like bees between alleyways, distant violin music echoing from piazzas, and the scent of espresso and tomato lingering in the air like a love note. Olivia walked for hours. No one rushed her. No one redirected her path. She sat alone at cafes, sipping cappuccinos beneath ivy-covered balconies. She watched the sunset from the steps of Piazzale Michelangelo, the Arno River burning orange beneath her feet. She visited every gallery she had once put off for the sake of others' interests. She had never felt more full. At night, she journaled. I spent so many years making room for people who never made room for me. But this week? This week is mine. By the 3rd day, she had stopped checking her phone altogether. She started chatting with locals in broken Italian. She met an Australian travel photographer named Lila who invited her to a rooftop dinner with other women traveling solo. They talked about grief and growth, about finding freedom after letting go of people who never saw your value. When Olivia told them what had happened with the trip, how her family replaced her on a vacation she had paid for, Lila simply said, "You didn't lose a trip. You lost illusions. And illusions always weigh more than truth." Olivia smiled. She hadn't thought of it that way. But she was starting to see that maybe she had gained something far more important than a few days abroad. She had found herself. On her last day in Florence, she stood on the Ponte Vecchio bridge, the old stone arching over the water, ancient and unyielding. She took out her journal again and began a new list. Take a photography course. Visit 5 more countries. Learn Italian. Start my own travel blog. Say no without guilt. Say yes to what makes me feel alive. She closed the book and tucked it back into her bag, her fingers brushing against the crimson scarf. She smiled. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. When Olivia returned home, the air smelled different, not because the seasons had changed, but because she had. Her apartment looked the same, but it felt lighter. Not because she had unpacked her bags, but because she had finally unpacked the resentment she'd carried for years. There was a message waiting on her phone. Mom, welcome home. Can we talk? She stared at it for a long moment. She didn't delete it. She didn't respond either. Not yet. This time, she would decide when and if the door reopened. Because for the first time in her life, Olivia understood something that took her 32 years on a broken family trip to learn. Her peace was not a gift to be handed over to the highest bidder. It was hers to guard. Hers to grow. Hers to give, only when it was deserved. 2 weeks after Olivia returned from Florence, she received a handwritten letter. The envelope was cream-colored and sealed with her mother's cursive handwriting, slightly slanted, carefully looped, just like the birthday cards from childhood. But this time, the tone was different. The envelope wasn't decorated with hearts or stickers. Just her name. Clean. Formal. She hesitated before opening it. Inside were 3 pages written in pen. The handwriting wavered in places, unusual for her mother, who prided herself on perfect penmanship. Dear Olivia. We've been thinking a lot about what happened. I know I said hurtful things. And I know we didn't consider your feelings the way we should have. We thought Celia needed it more, and in doing that, we hurt you deeply. For that, I am sorry. Olivia read the letter twice, her eyes scanning for the usual signs of manipulation. But there weren't any. There were no excuses. No veiled criticisms. No "but you have to understand." It ended simply with, "We would like to talk, if you're open to it. We miss you." She placed the letter on her desk and didn't respond. Not immediately. Because this time, she was on her timeline. The next message came from her father, a week later. A voice message, short, quiet, unpolished. Hey, Liv. Your mom's letter. We meant it. We really do want to make things right. Even Celia. Well, she's been quieter lately. Said you were probably right about more than she realized. We just miss you. Again, no guilt trip. No manipulation. Just silence. The kind that lets something new grow. When she finally agreed to meet, she set the terms. We'll meet at the community garden. 10 a.m. Saturday. Just the 2 of you. No Celia. Her mother hesitated before replying, okay. Just us. The morning of the meeting, Olivia wore her simplest outfit, jeans, white sneakers, a cardigan that reminded her of Florence. She arrived early, sitting beneath the arbor surrounded by tall sunflowers and lavender that buzzed with bees. She brought a journal and a thermos of tea. She didn't feel nervous. She felt ready. Her parents arrived at 10:03. A small but meaningful delay. It reminded her how many years she'd spent waiting for them to arrive for her. Her mother looked older. Not aged, exactly, but softer. Maybe it was the cardigan, or the fact that she wore no makeup. Her father seemed humbled too, carrying a reusable coffee mug like someone trying to blend in. They sat down across from her on the garden bench. For a moment, no one spoke. Finally, her mother said, "Thank you for coming." "I almost didn't," Olivia replied. "I know." Her father looked at her, then down at his coffee. "We messed up." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "That's a start." "We thought we were doing the right thing," her mother added. "We thought Celia needed it more. We didn't realize how much you needed something, too." Olivia tilted her head. "You didn't realize because you never asked. Because for years, you assumed I was the strong one. The stable one. The giver." Her voice didn't shake. She had rehearsed this in her head for too long. "But what you never understood," she continued, "was that being strong isn't the same as being invulnerable. You took and took from me because I never yelled. But I was breaking quietly. And that trip, you didn't just exclude me. You erased me." Her mother blinked rapidly. Her father looked away. Olivia didn't stop. "I spent years being your fixer. I was the glue. And all it did was make it easier for you to pretend Celia's chaos was more urgent than my presence. That my consistency made me less worthy of attention." Her mother started to speak, but Olivia held up a hand. "I'm not finished." They sat quietly. "I planned that trip for 3 years. That was my gift to you. And you gave it away. Not even with me. Instead of me. And you didn't see what was wrong with that." Her father nodded slowly. "You're right. There's no excuse." Her mother looked at her. "I don't expect you to forgive us. Not today. Maybe not ever. But we're here because we want to do better." Olivia studied them. And for once, she didn't feel like she was shrinking in their presence. She was the one with the power now. She set the boundaries. She decided what came next. "I don't want things to go back to how they were," Olivia said. "Because the way they were wasn't healthy for me." Her mother nodded. "We understand. I'm willing to start fresh," Olivia said. "But on my terms." She handed them a small folded sheet. Her own version of expectations. "Respect my boundaries. No guilt tripping when I say no. I will not be the default planner or fixer. You must treat Celia and me equally, or I walk away again." They read it. Neither protested. "We agree," her father said. "And one more thing," Olivia added, "I want space. You can reach out, but I'll reply when I want. I need to rebuild trust, and I'm doing it slowly." Her mother reached across the table but stopped before touching her hand. "Can I hug you?" Olivia hesitated, then nodded. It was stiff. Awkward. Not healing, exactly. But human. A beginning. Over the next few weeks, things didn't magically resolve. But there were changes. Her parents didn't call every day. They didn't ask for favors. When Olivia missed a family dinner, no one guilted her. Instead, her mother texted, "Hope your quiet time is restful." Celia sent one message, brief and surprising. "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. I don't know how to fix it, but I'm thinking about it." Olivia hadn't replied yet. But she saved it. Not because she was ready to forgive. But because she was open to deciding if she wanted to try. Her solo trip to Florence had been a turning point, yes. But this quiet re-entry into her own family on her own terms, was the revolution. She didn't need their approval. She had her own. And that was the beginning of a new story. One where she wasn't the fixer. She was the foundation. It was a crisp Sunday morning when Olivia stood barefoot on her balcony, the steam of her coffee rising into the cool autumn air. The city was just beginning to stir, dog walkers, bakery deliveries, the soft hum of early buses on distant streets. A full year had passed since the day she stood in her parents' driveway, watching her sister climb into the backseat of her trip. Now, a world away from the sting of that betrayal, she had built something entirely different, a life with boundaries, beauty, and boldness, one not shaped by guilt, but by growth. And she wasn't going back. The journey hadn't been easy. After that garden meeting with her parents, she had allowed slow, Cautious communication to continue, like offering sips of water to someone who had once let her dehydrate. They followed her rules. At first, clumsily. There were slip-ups, passive-aggressive comments, emotional bribes, but Olivia called them out every time. Not angrily, not cruelly. Just clearly. And each time, the message became louder: I'm not who I used to be. Her mother sent thoughtful texts now. Articles she thought Olivia would like. Photos of homemade dishes she remembered Olivia loved as a child. No guilt. Just offerings. Her father, once emotionally absent, started to ask real questions. How's work? Where's your next trip? Have you considered submitting your travel writing to a magazine? He listened. He didn't interrupt. And sometimes, he even said he was proud. Celia was a longer road. She didn't apologize again. But she didn't fight either. She stayed quiet, respectful, and Olivia accepted that some things would mend slowly, or not at all. Some bridges didn't need to be burned. But they didn't need to be rebuilt, either. Olivia's life, meanwhile, had bloomed. After returning from Florence, she started a blog, Olive Paths, a mix of solo travel stories, personal essays, and reflections on breaking cycles. What began as a small corner of the internet slowly gained traction. Readers commented things like, "Your voice feels like a mirror I didn't know I needed. This made me rethink how I treat my daughters. You gave me the courage to book my first solo trip." She had no idea her words could matter to strangers. She turned her journal entries into blog posts. Her blog posts into short guides. And by winter, she had a modest sponsorship with a female travel gear company. It wasn't about the money. It was about being seen, by the world, but most importantly, by herself. In the spring, she booked a trip to Kyoto. Cherry blossoms. Temples. Tea ceremonies. She told no one until she was already there. She wandered through narrow alleyways, tried on a silk yukata, learned to say thank you and excuse me in careful, practiced syllables. She lit incense at a Shinto shrine for the version of herself who had once believed love had to be earned through self-sacrifice. That girl deserved peace, too. Back home, Olivia continued to redefine her world. She took a photography class at the local art center. On Saturdays, she joined a meditation group in the park. And on weekdays, she carved out time not just for her freelance work, but for her joy. Sometimes that meant a 2-hour lunch at her favorite cafe. Sometimes it meant saying no to family invitations without offering a single explanation. And sometimes it meant simply lying on the floor of her apartment with music playing, eyes closed, feeling the soft sun on her face and thinking, I am safe here. I am enough. One night, while sipping wine on her balcony, she received a text from her mom. Celia asked if we could all go on a weekend trip together sometime. Just something small. No pressure. But, if you'd even consider it, we'd love that. Olivia stared at the message for a long time. Not because she was angry. She wasn't. Not anymore. But because she no longer rushed into things that didn't serve her. She smiled, set the phone down, and let the message sit, like a letter waiting for a stamp. She didn't owe anyone her yes. But maybe, one day, she might want to offer it freely. A few months later, Olivia stood on stage at a local creative women's event. The auditorium was modest, the spotlight warm on her skin. Her topic, the power of saying no, and the freedom it gives you. She shared her story, not as a victim, but as someone who had reclaimed authorship of her life. She talked about the trip that had never been hers. The family she loved but no longer let define her. The journey from people pleaser to peaceful woman. When she finished, the applause was soft but sincere. Several women approached her afterward with tearful eyes and notebooks full of scribbled quotes. One said, "You just helped me walk away from a decade of silence. Thank you." And Olivia realized, her story had become more than pain, it had become purpose. That night, she walked home beneath the soft drizzle, her coat open and her heart wide. She looked up at the clouds and whispered, "Thank you," to no one in particular. Not to her family. Not to the past. Not even to fate. But to herself, for choosing to live. When she returned home, there was a letter waiting in her mailbox. No return address, but she knew the handwriting immediately. Celia. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Liv. You were right. About all of it. I didn't just take your trip. I took advantage of your silence. I don't expect forgiveness. But I'm starting to understand why you stopped making everything so easy for us. I hope one day, I'll get to know the real you. The Yui never took the time to see. Olivia folded the letter, pressed it to her chest, and closed her eyes. Forgiveness would come. Maybe. But she no longer needed it to be free. As the months stretched on, her life expanded. She hiked in Portugal. She wrote a book proposal. She hosted workshops for women ready to stop apologizing for their own dreams. And through it all, she never once again gave away her seat, on a trip, in her life, or in her heart, without knowing she wanted to. Because Olivia Reyes no longer lived for anyone else's expectations. She lived for herself. Fully. Fiercely. Freely. And that, more than any plane ticket, was the journey that changed everything.